Northumberland, 13th century. Forget knights and chivalry, think blood feuds, cattle rustling and protection rackets. Nestled between England and Scotland, Redesdale was a wild place, no man's land, a haven for outlaws. Imagine a land where the king's writ meant nothing. This was a world of brutal reality, where survival depended on strength, cunning and loyalty, a far cry from romantic notions of the Middle Ages. Into this chaos stepped Gilbert Umfraville, a Norman lord with ambition as vast as the Redesdale moors. He wasn't just another nobleman, he was a force of nature.
Power wasn't given, it was taken, and I was determined to take it all.
Through shrewd alliances and brute force, he became the undisputed king of Redesdale. He built castles, raised armies, and dispensed his own brand of justice. He was judge, jury, and sometimes executioner. England and Scotland were locked in a constant struggle for dominance. Redesdale, a buffer zone, became a pawn in their Game of Thrones. Both monarchs wanted control of this strategic region. Both tried to buy Umfraville's loyalty.
We need his support, offer him lands and titles.
We must secure his allegiance, promise him gold and power.
He played them against each other, extracting concessions and privileges for his support. He was a master of manipulation, switching sides when it suited him. He knew his worth. He was the kingmaker, the power broker, the man who could tip the scales of war. Forget pinstripe suits and Tommy guns. Umfraville's enforcers were hardened warriors, skilled with sword and bow. They were the terror of the borderlands. Think horseback raids, bloody skirmishes and villages put to the torch. These men were the muscle behind Umfraville's rule. They enforced his will, collected his taxes and dealt with his enemies. They were loyal, ruthless and feared. They were the medieval equivalent of a biker gang, only with better weaponry and a higher body count. Section 5. Marriage, alliances, and power plays. Umfraville was a master strategist. He knew that power wasn't just about brute force. It was about building alliances, forging connections, and playing the long game. He arranged strategic marriages for himself and his family, cementing ties with powerful families in both England and Scotland. He understood that blood ties could be stronger than any treaty. He played the political game with cunning and ruthlessness, always looking for an advantage. He was a survivor, a pragmatist, and above all, a winner. Section 6. The Umfravilles. Lawmen or lawbreakers. Were the Umfravilles villains or heroes? The lines were blurred. They were products of their time. In a lawless land, they brought a semblance of order. They protected their own, dispensing rough justice and demanding loyalty, but they were also ruthless in their pursuit of power and wealth. They lived by a different code, a medieval omerta. They were a paradox, a family who embodied both the chaos and the stability of their age. They were the law, but they were also above it. Section 7. A family business, crime and punishment. The Umfravilles weren't just warlords, they were entrepreneurs of violence. They controlled the roads, levied tolls, and profited from protection rackets. Sound familiar? They were the medieval mafia running their territory like a feudal corporation. They understood that fear was a powerful motivator, both for their enemies and their subjects. They were ruthless in crushing dissent, but they also understood the importance of loyalty. They rewarded their followers generously, creating a system based on fear and favor.
You know, it's not personal, it's just business.
Section 8. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, or just robbing Peter. Their wealth came at a price. Raids into England and Scotland were commonplace. Cattle rustling, kidnapping for ransom and plundering villages were all part of the family business. These weren't random acts of violence, they were calculated operations designed to weaken their enemies and enrich their coffers. They were the medieval equivalent of hostile takeovers. Their victims were often ordinary people, caught in the crossfire of a conflict they didn't understand, but to the Umfravilles, they were just collateral damage. Section 9. The Long Shadow of the Godfather. Gilbert Umfraville died in 1245, but his impact on Redesdale was profound. He left behind a legacy of violence, ambition, and a family forever associated with power. His descendants continued to rule Redesdale for generations, their names whispered with a mixture of awe and fear. They inherited his ruthlessness and his political acumen. The Umfraville name became synonymous with the region itself, a testament to the enduring power of a family who had carved their own kingdom out of chaos. Section 10. From medieval stronghold to modern ruins. Today, the castles of the Umfraville stand in ruins, crumbling reminders of a bygone era. But their stories still resonate, whispering tales of ambition, treachery, and brutal power. Standing amongst the weathered stones, it's easy to imagine the clang of swords, the thunder of hooves, and the screams of the vanquished. The past feels eerily close. Redesdale itself has changed. It's now a place of quiet beauty, its violent history buried beneath layers of time. But the memory of the Umfravilles lingers on. Section 11. The legacy of the Redesdale Godfather. Gilbert Umfraville was a product of his time, a man who thrived in a world of violence and uncertainty. He was a ruthless warlord, a shrewd politician, and a master manipulator. He was the godfather of Redesdale, a man who built an empire on the backs of his enemies. He was a reminder that the past is a foreign country where the rules were different and life was cheap. His story is a reminder that power, no matter how absolute, is always fleeting, and that even the most powerful empires eventually crumble into dust.